You ever feel rich on paper, but broke in your bank account? Well, businesses feel that too. So I'm going to give you 5 takeaways to help you today to never feel that way again on a personal side and for business. We all know what it's like, right? To where you might be making a lot of money, you drive a nice car, going out to nice restaurants, but you live in paycheck to paycheck. That's because you have a cash flow issue. The money that's coming in is not superseding what your expenses are. So you just feeling strapped, you just feeling tight because you need to increase your cash flow. So for businesses, that happens quite often because you might be trying to wait on some accounts receivable to come in. If you do something like what I've done in the past, where you're doing nothing but real estate deals, you might have put out a lot of money up front on the investment side and you're waiting for that house to sell so you can get some of that money back and then the equity that's in the house. So that entire time, if you don't have a lot of money coming in or you're just living off savings here and there, you're struggling, right? And so when you have a business, it's the same way. Like you're waiting paycheck to paycheck, you're waiting for the next check to come in before you can, get some breathing room. And so it sucks. No one likes that feeling, right? So the main thing you got to do is increase your cash flow. One of the first things to do, and people don't like this, but you kind of cut your expenses. I remember at one point when I was trying to get into real estate, I was trying to cut my expenses as much as possible. I had a $780 a month car payment. I refinanced that down. I had cable. AT&T was crazy expensive. I think it was $250 a month. I ended up cutting my cable, started watching DVDs. I got Netflix. My gym membership, I was going to Equinox. My gym membership was $210 a month. I cut that out, started going to LA Fitness. So I started doing all these different things to try to decrease my expenses so the money that I did have coming in would be able to help me out. So I increased my cash flow by cutting my expenses. So on a personal side, I would say that's what I want to do. I would tell you to figure out the best way to cut some of the stuff that you really don't need. And a lot of people don't like sacrifice, but the sacrifices that you make with something like this, it could be 6 months to 12 months if you got a cleaning lady, whatever the case is. If you got to wash your own car, do whatever you got to do, because the goal in the end is going to be an increase in cash flow. Then you'll be able to do whatever you want because now you've taken the money that was going toward a credit card or something like that. Now you're investing it. Now you're putting it into a business, or you started a side hustle and now you got more cash to come in that you can deploy. On the business side, you see all these companies out here that might go out and raise capital. They go out and raise a lot of funds. So you look at all these companies that are able to raise money from VCs like WeWork, and they go out of business because now they got a lot of money that they didn't work hard for. So that's a little bit different from you having a business and you cutting your expenses, right? Now you I work hard for this money. I may be sacrificing over here, but when you got a business and you go out and raise funds, that's why I'm a big fan of bootstrapping, because you're going to be so much more meticulous on how you spend your money. So how can you have a business that's profitable on paper, bringing in $1 million a year, but they're about to go out of business? Because they probably have too many employees. One of the biggest expenses that a business has is employees. So that's why you want to be slow to hire and quick to fire, because most of your money is going to be going toward that. So you think about all these companies that raise capital, like WeWork, they went out and bought all these different buildings. Not even bought, they put all these buildings on leases. It would have been smarter if they bought them. They put some of these buildings on leases, or they went out and hired a bunch of employees. And so now they took that money that they got coming in and they just, I don't want to say blew it, but they scaled too fast. And so one of the things that I did when I first got going with InvestFar, I had money coming in, right? I ended up raising, I think it was 150 grand, a friends and family round. So then I end up trying to scale and do Airbnbs in Colombia. I end up bringing on more employees than I should have up front from overseas. I was going to seminars. I was going on different trips. They were work related, but they were premature. I could have waited with some of that money that I had coming in when I did raise from that 150 and just been more wise. I didn't have to just try to get more employees to try to, build out a social media team, or go to Colombia and, get multiple Airbnbs, or go to 3 or 4 different seminars to try to be a sponsor, get a table in the back. These are all the things that you do when you're trying to scale too fast, because now you got cash and you're let me deploy it as fast as possible. And you're not really forecasting income coming in, right? You got this money, you got a lump sum of money. Now you're like, boom, let's put it to work. But if you don't forecast, what that looks like based on you spending it, you're gonna, hit a roadblock to where you're like, oh man. So you end up overspending. So when you got these companies that you like, man, this company just raised $20 million, how are they broke? Because they did what I just said, they scaled too fast. And so one thing that I did learn with InvestFar and the new company that I just started, can't say the name yet, but you will find out. Usually when you have a successful business the first time around, the second one's going to be that much easier. So the fact that I have been able to keep InvestFar going for so long by creating a different division, which is InvestFar Capital, I can forecast revenue coming in. I scaled back on employees. I fired a lot of people. So now I might only have 10 or 15 versus before I had like 25 or 30. Some of them weren't doing anything. Some of them were half-assing it, especially with some of the employees that I had monitoring the Airbnbs in Colombia. So you just learn how to, forecast the money coming in and know that you don't need as many employees as you think you need. And that's why sometimes, like me, when I did work at the bank, I was doing a job of 3 people as one person because the company probably experienced scaling too fast. So they knew like, all right, we only really need this amount of people in this position. And until they complain, I guess, or until we see that we need to bring on more people, we're just gonna, I hate to say it, overwork the current employees that we do have. But that's how you stay lean for longer and keep your cash flow coming in so you don't run into the problem that we're talking about. So takeaway number 1, profit doesn't always equal cash flow, right? Because you might have profit depending on where it came from, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's cash flow. It could be lump sums, but lump sums of money, it's not like cash flow that's coming in every month. Cash flow can sometimes be predictable depending on your business model. And then profit is like, boom, it could be from the sale of one house. Now you got $50,000, but that's not cash flow. So once that 50,000 runs out, if you don't have cash flow coming in to replenish that $50,000, you're going to hit a wall. You're going to run into a situation. So number 2, delayed payments. A lot of times when you're trying to start out with a business, depending on what it is, you want to give away stuff for free. You want to like try to build your customer base so then you can probably market a different product to them later on. So you might do some kind of delayed financing, or say, for instance, you have a coaching program and you might do, give me, the first month for free. And then after that, you make payments, which that person might get so much knowledge from you from the first month, they might not want to continue the rest of the program. And so that's what I've seen a lot of coaches nowadays. They want half up front or they want a large portion up front, because then if if the person or the client decides to back out after 3 or 4 months because maybe they've run into cash flow problems, or they might have got enough value from you within that first 3 or 4 months, they don't see the reason for paying, whatever the monthly payment is or whatever the second half of that payment is, right? So I know I've been in masterminds where the monthly payment was $1,500 a month, right? So after a couple months, I'm like, well, I've gotten enough information. I'm gonna go do my own thing. And then I just end up canceling the remaining 6 months. So that person might have made a good amount of money up front or from me monthly, but they would have made more had they charged me up front, or they might have just been like, we're going to take 2 payments. We're going to take one now and then one in 3 months, right? So you can't always, say that, or you can't always predict. So you can't always rely on the fact that you might have a contract with somebody, right? Delayed payments can kill a business because, again, it goes back to cash flow. You'll see the theme of this is going to be cash flow is king. This leads me into number 3, over investing in growth. It goes back to what I just said a few minutes ago about what I did with InvestFar and what WeWork did when they got the funding. You overinvest. I'm a victim of overinvesting because you're trying to put so much more capital back into the business, because the more money you put into your business, obviously the more employees you get. Hypothetically, you would think that this person is going to translate into more growth or more revenue for the company. That's not always the case. So you reinvesting in me going to these seminars or me trying to put money into these Airbnbs when not having any cash flow coming in, I get cash strapped. So if you don't have a large sum of money, and you can see how that large sum of money, again, like I gave you the example earlier, it can run out. So if you're just over investing and you don't have a bucket of cash, then you're going to run into a problem, because Now you don't have cash flow coming in, and now you've over invested too much of the money that you did get as a lump sum. So now your business is going to hit a wall because you haven't replenished any of the money that you spent. So I'm a huge victim of this, which I've learned over the course of the years that you shouldn't do that. You should always be able to keep some form of money available at all times. I won't do that anymore. So like now I realize that you can get so much more done with less. Even just being AI has obviously bridged the gap with that. So even with just being able to use AI for a lot of things, I would rather pay more in software like a ChatGPT or a Salesforce sales agent, right? You might pay $150 a month for these or $70, but that's way less than you paying somebody $15 an hour, right? $22 an hour to do the same thing. So you just learn different strategies to help you not overinvest, but still invest in your business at the same time. So don't be a victim of overinvesting because you have a large sum of money. So just in case you did a flip and you did get 70 grand, now you're like, oh, I want to go buy 2 properties because this worked out so great. No, you don't want to do that. You want to just take that money and buy one flip, maybe find a better deal that has more equity in it. Or maybe you do want to hire a social media team. Maybe you get one person that's full-time, then hire somebody that's part-time, right? Or you get someone that's really good on Fiverr and do, 1 or 2 off projects with that person before you get to the point of where you want to hire someone part-time. There's different ways that you can leverage AI or platforms like Fiverr or platforms like Upwork when you do get a lump sum of money to make sure you don't overinvest. Tip number 4, this is a huge one, debt snowballing. A lot of times when you have a business, especially when you're first starting out, you put so much stuff on credit cards, but that high interest rate is going to eat at your profit or any kind of income that you got coming in. Because if you have a credit card payment and with interest rate fluctuating, you can be paying $200 a month. Depending on how high your credit card balance is, you could be looking at a payment of $200 to $300 a month. You know what I mean? So you don't want to get into the point of where you're just relying on credit card debt to fuel your business. Ideally, in the beginning, when you leave your job, or maybe you do get an investor, you just scale slowly. Or you might get 1 or 2 credit cards and you pay them off every single month. And then once you get to the point of where you're at your limit, then you just gotta probably do more tasks yourself. Maybe if you're using a person on Upwork or like a contractor, then you can just put that contract on pause, which I've done several times to be like, you know what? I don't need you this month. I'm just gonna do it myself. Because in the beginning of your business, you're gonna be doing almost every single aspect of the business. So you're gonna know the ins and out. And then at some point in time, when you do get more cash, that's when you start getting contractors from Upwork or Fiverr. So at any point in time, you can pause those contracts. That's what I would advise. Like, that's why people outsource. I'm not saying everybody's using platforms like that, but if you are outsourcing, you have the ability to be like, you know what? I'm not going to use you this week. Even if you're contracting somebody in the US, same thing. So you want to get to the point of where you do reach a limit on your credit cards. You know how to hit the pause button, so you're not over leveraging beyond that point of where you go out and get another credit card, or now you're trying to take out a loan. You don't want to get to the point of where you're like debt heavy. And so that's what happens with businesses. A private equity firm or a company, a VC firm might want to come in and buy your business, but they come in there like, oh my God, you're debt to the, ceiling. Now your business is not great because you might be profitable, but your debt is killing your cash flow. So yeah, you're bringing in money, but you're not really, because all the money you're bringing in is just enough to service your debt. So don't get into the point of where you're doing snowballing of debt, because that's going to be a trap. Like, debt is a trap if you don't use it the right way. I love debt. I always talk about it. I know Dave Ramsey is a huge person against debt, but debt is only bad if you don't use it right. Credit card debt, not right. But if you're doing a loan, like I've mentioned previously, with putting 10% down, flipping the property, doing the cash out refinance, turning it into a rental or turning it into an Airbnb, that's not bad debt. So know what you're doing when it comes to debt. Number 5, I touched on this earlier, lack of forecasting revenue. If you don't forecast your inflows and outflows weekly, how are you going to be able to keep track? How are you going to know when it's time to pause? How are you going to know maybe you can go out there and get investors? Maybe you can go out there and get investors. How are you going to know when it's time? This is the death of most businesses because they're not forecasting the inflows and outflows. They're not looking at their P&Ls every month. And this is kind of what you got to do. You want to always, you do this with your bank account, right? Your personal bank account. I hope some people don't even do that with their personal bank account. And that's probably why they run into issues where they're getting, I don't want to say everybody's scenario, but like if you're not forecasting the amount of money you got coming in, you can't really properly run your household like that, in my opinion. And the same thing goes for a business. If you're not properly checking how much your revenue that you got coming in weekly, I mean, you're going to end up running into a cash flow problem. And that's the name of the game. Cash flow is king, whether it be your household. And I don't know if people understand, your household is a business. You have a P&L, you have expenses, and you have profit. Profit is the income coming from your W-2, right? So you have a P&L just like a business would have. So if you don't have the right tools in place with a budget for your personal expenses, you're going to have a cash flow issue too. Cash flow is king, whether it be cash flow is the way to go, regardless if it's your personal or your business. One of the things that my dad would always tell me, don't spend it before you have it, right? Profit, don't spend it before you have it, right? Profit is a very vanity metric. Cash flow is what keeps the lights on. Keep that in mind when it's you doing anything in your house. Maybe you get a bonus with your business, you sell a property, you get a lump sum from an investor. Doesn't matter. I want you to always keep this in mind. Revenue is applause, profit is opinion, cash flow is reality. So before you celebrate that big win for the month, make sure it's in your bank account. Ask yourself, how much of it is actually in your bank account after all expenses are paid?